Hi, Sandi Maki here with a quick conversation about significance because it's on my mind today. The one thing that I don't really want to do with this series is become predictable or create expectation, mostly in myself, that I have to find something to talk about every day. I like the idea of them being rambling and whimsical and fun and posting whenever inspiration strikes. That being said, I still feel compelled to try to come up with something every day. So I don't know, we'll see how it goes. I'll surprise you. Maybe some days there won't be posts and maybe some days there will. Today, I've been reflecting on significance. I was reading an article in Oprah magazine about Rosie O'Donnell, which reminded me of, I don't know, just some thoughts, I guess, that float around in my own head from time to time, and I thought maybe I would go ahead and explore those with you. There's an interesting observation that I've been making in my own life as I become maybe a little bit more significant in circles with people that I have come to know. Many of you may know of my experiences with the Insights Group, which was founded in 2008 to be a networking, community, support, creativity, mastermind experience that my business partner and I dreamed up. That was the start of a lot of really cool things in my life. It started a deeper understanding of masterminding, understanding human behavior, and understanding significance a little bit more. The ability that any one person has to make an extreme impact on the world started to become even more clear to me, and I started to pay attention to it. You know, we are all significant every day in our lives with the people that we come into contact with. I think that we don't realize the significance often until there's been a time lapse in between whatever the event or the relationship was, and then when we start to realize just how significant that was. So I was reading this article, and I don't think that I ever made the connection in my head before. The article said that Rosie O'Donnell, when she started her show on NBC that became extremely popular, she was 34 years old and a single mom who had just adopted her first son. She was on the air for 6 years, and she had made that decision. Actually, she made the decision she only wanted to be on 5 years because when her son was going to start school, she wanted to have time to do a lot of things with him. I don't think that I ever made the connection while she was on the air with how old she was, which is just, number one, highly irrelevant, but number two, a little bit hard to wrap my head around. Somehow, with our social programming, and I know at least with mine, even though I know anything is possible, I still have those tapes that run in my head that say, well, you have to be a certain age before you can achieve this level of significance, or you have to have put in this much time and effort before all these things can happen for you. This might sound a little bit cliche, but the older I get, the more I realize that that is just not relevant. So, what an interesting thing. The closer that I become in some of my circles that I'm a member of, the closer I become to people that I would perceive as having some level of acclaim, fame, fortune, some kind of an elevated social status, maybe in some way. The closer I come to them, the more I realize that everybody is the same. Everybody has, the same life. We just perceive that certain people have a different life, and they do. There's certain things as a celebrity. I understand that you're more well known and you have to watch where you go and what you say depending on who's paying attention and who's listening. But everybody is still just people. They're still people with families and children and soccer games and the same struggles and concerns that anyone else might have. In the article in Oprah magazine, where Oprah was talking with Rosie about what's coming up for her, there was a really interesting observation that was made by Rosie. And part of it was that she didn't realize for a while that she was in the club. And that club would be, I guess, people of a certain level of acclaim or a certain level of notoriety. And, what determines who's in that club? Well, I think it's each of our perceptions of who would be in that club. So it took a while for her to realize that she was in the club. And one of the things that she also shared was everybody that she knows who's in the club feels like they're not a member, even some of the biggest stars that we could name. And that to me was really interesting, and that highlighted just another realization about how at the end of the day we're just all people, and every person, no matter what may be perceived on the outside, deep down inside is still just like everybody else, trying to figure it out just like everybody else. And I think some people are better able to push past that, push past the potential hang-ups, mental hang-ups, roadblocks that might be in their own way, and to do what they do with the smile on their face. And yet hiding, I think, because there's some perceived value in putting that brave face on, or that strong face, instead of letting people see the vulnerable, maybe authentic or transparent side. I think a lot of people tried to hide that. From my own experiences, I can tell you when dealing with the Insights group and masterminding and networking and becoming a little bit of a person that people started to look to, there is a certain amount of pressure to be on all the time. And by be on, it means no matter what's going on in your own life or whatever was going on in my life, I still felt like I needed to be there for other people and supportive, and not let in or not let on that, maybe I wasn't having that great of a day. And I know that during that time, there were a few people in my life that definitely made a point of checking in on me to see how I was doing versus checking in on the person that they saw that was coming to the meetings. And I had several wonderful conversations and wonderful relationships around the fact that there were people who, even knowing what the role was, invited me to be authentic and be a little bit vulnerable around them, which really helped me to maintain some perspective around certain things. And on the same token, I offered that to other people. And it's a little bit of a delicate conversation to bring up. I think a lot of the times it started with the acknowledgement of, I know that people look to you, and I know that there's a certain amount of importance that you place and that I place on being on and being able to handle people's questions and, help be encouraging and not let people see that things might be different. But, just to let you know, in this space and with me, feel free to be vulnerable. And if there's anything I can help with or help you work through so that you can continue to be that resource for so many people, please share, and let's lean on each other in this. I think when we acknowledge that that piece maybe that we could use in our own lives, at least when I acknowledged for me that, I did need an outlet where I could be a little bit more authentic, where I felt like I could let my guard down. I think that was really important. And in reading this article that Oprah and Rosie were sharing just about stardom, again, people, even highly, highly successful people, still don't necessarily feel like they belong to the club. So that raises the question, who decides who's in the club and where does that all really start? And I believe that the perception of being in the club or not in the club comes from each and every one of us and our perspectives. I know there's a certain element of the news media, maybe the paparazzi, that try to artificially create this sense of the club. But deep down, it starts with what we're all thinking and what we're all feeling about it. So let's wrap this up with a little bit of a thought about significance, because I had a recent revelation about significance and have tried to come to terms with it in my own mind. I was driving in the mountains of Colorado. I had gone out there for a summit meeting, a business mastermind motivational weekend with a lot of business owners and really fabulous people from around the country. And I do these several times a year. So this particular one was in Colorado. And at the time, we were in our little rental car that was, I guess, having some high altitude problems because it was chugging up the side of the mountain, I guess is the best way to explain it. Anyway, while on this drive, we were out to do a little bit of sightseeing. I was having a conversation about how people realize when they're significant, or if you ever really know or assimilate that with a part of you. And the reason that I was contemplating the question was because I was sitting in meetings with a group of people that I can only explain as phenomenal. People who started with nothing and ended up having large companies employing hundreds of people and having, from what appears on the outside, as reached a certain amount of success and significance. This group of people comes together to have really authentic experiences with each other and share thoughts and insights and motivations. What I really appreciate about the group is that everybody who shows up to find out what they can do to help everybody else who came. They show up to lend a little bit of themselves in hoping that relationships can be created and that inspiration can be taken, motivation, and it's a chance for people to recharge their batteries a little bit, and it's also a place for people to explore with a supportive group what more is possible. So I'm sitting in the room with all of these people time and time again, and I have that little voice in my head that continues to say, do you really deserve to be sitting at this table? Do you really think that you're this significant? Which is, I think, what Rosie might have alluded to in saying that, even people who are a part of the club, they still don't really know that they're a part of the club. And I can only imagine that that same thing is happening for a lot of the people that are in the room. So on the car ride, while chugging up the mountain, I was having this discussion about how does someone know when they're significant? And in that moment, I remember clearly gazing out the window and pondering my life and wondering, when will I realize that I'm significant? And I started to think about the hundreds and thousands of people that I've met through my experiences when things ramped up with the Insights group. I've met people locally, I've met people around the country, I've met people internationally, and there are a lot of people that have listened to my message. And while all these people have been listening to my message, I've probably had this little voice in my head saying, why are you paying attention to me? I don't know that I really have this much to share. But if people keep showing up and if people keep listening, then I'll keep sharing, even though I don't really know why they're showing up. I can only hope that they're gaining something out of it. And I think in that moment, I had a realization that I was significant. I was more significant than I had given myself credit for. And even though I could rationalize that there was probably some amount of significance, I still had that little voice saying, yeah, but that really can't be the case. So then I was looking at the other people that were sitting in the room and pondered that significance. And I can completely justify for everybody else, no matter what position they were in or, what point in their life they were in, I could completely justify for everybody else in that room their significance and their relevance. And I could try to do that for myself, and then I would still have those doubts. I think it is so much easier for us to give that credibility and give that significance to other people. I know it is for me. And I think that part of the secret of moving to the next level in the video game, if there is one, is when you get to look around you and realize your significance. And when you can sit with that and accept it and understand that it is a truth and it is a reality, I think that's when you kind of graduate to that next level of awareness where a lot more becomes possible. I think a lot of people accomplish a lot of really fantastic and amazing things without realizing that part of significance. And I think if we allowed ourselves, and if I allow myself to realize that there is a greater level that can be achieved when you allow yourself to realize your own magnificence and your own significance, I think that opens up the world to a whole lot more possibilities. I would suggest that if you're on any kind of a journey, and I can only imagine that you are, especially if you're listening to some of these random musings that are coming out, I would imagine that you're on a little bit of a journey. Surround yourself with people that are also on their journeys. Surround yourself with people that you find significant and that also find you significant. And in every instance where there's people that you are introduced to, that you can see a glimmer of significance, whether they can see it or not, do your absolute best to make sure that they know that they're significant and help to open that window, help to encourage that hidden dream or that hidden desire that they could begin to share with the world a little bit more. Because you are significant and they are significant. And with human nature being what it is, we can all use that little push from time to time. So my wish for you is that you realize your significance and your brilliance. And I'll do my best to continue to recognize that for myself. So until next time, know that you're significant and that the world is a better place because you're sharing a bit of yourself with it.